Welcome to the Passion, Purpose, Power podcast. I'm your host, Ames. I'm a neurodivergent, fat, queer counsellor, coach and clinical supervisor, and I love stories. I love hearing your stories, I love sharing stories, and I love talking with people about their stories. In this podcast, I'm going to introduce you to interesting people with interesting stories to share about their passions, purpose, and power. If you love this podcast, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any amazing episodes, and come and find me on social media. I want to hear from you, and please share your stories with me. Tamsin Quin is a singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist from Wiltshire who has been described as a mesmerising folk pixie. Drawing on the influences of Joni Mitchell, Fleetwood Mac and Nick Drake, Tamsin weaves magic in the songs she writes, telling enticing tales of her life and experiences as well as being inspired by fictional characters. Tamsin is also bringing her musical talents to the Wiltshire folk supergroup, The Lost Trades, along with Jamie R. Hawkins and Phil Cooper, and they are seeing growing interest from BBC Introducing, as well as many local radio performances and successful national tours. And because I never have boring people on the podcast, let me tell you some more about some of the other things that Tamsin is doing. So Tamsin is also a woodcrafter, drawing on her love for the natural world. Tamsin carved her first spoon in 2014 and has developed her talents to make some incredible wooden pieces, several of which I have in my house. Tamsin has also run beginner wood carving classes, opened a joint workshop with Felix Byrne Guitars, and gained a grant from Arts Council England to develop her creative practice in the traditional methods of green woodworking. Not to mention, Tamsin is talented in the art of pyrography, so many of her wooden creations are also adorned with her wood-burned drawings. Tamsin has a soul for adventure and storytelling, and along with her partner Ollie, has travelled around the country this summer on the Folk Bus, a mobile repository of the mytho-poetic imagination, a drivable ship of myth, folklore, song and story. So I will be sharing Tamsin's social media accounts, and I'd highly encourage you to go and follow this super talented creative woman. Tamsin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Amy. Wow, that was quite the introduction. You kind of don't realise that you've done that much, and every day you're just doing, what you think is the right path for you, and then suddenly somebody reads that to you and you go, whoa, I've actually done quite a lot actually.
Yeah, I was so proud of you. I was writing it all down and I was thinking I'm going to have to speak really fast to get all of this out, and I'll stumble over my words. But when we I don't even know when we met, but obviously back in, I think I read was it 2018 you released the studio album?
Yeah, that was 2018. So I can't actually remember the first time I met you, but I just remember loving your music, and your voice was just so gorgeous. And when we started talking about the launch party, I was like, I know just the woman I want supporting me, because I think like it's nice for a woman to have another woman as musically as support, because I think it's just nice to have that support within these sort of roles, isn't it? So yeah, that was such a good night.
It was such a good night, and it was so much fun. And I remember your incredible glittery dress for some reason.
I had such a sparkly dress on. It was literally just made of sparkles, and I've never worn it since.
You are a magical folk pixie. I'm not sure who coined that phrase, but it is so you.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing. So obviously there's a lot that we can talk about, but I'm going to start with the question of kind of, what do you feel passionate about? So I know there's a lot of stuff there that I don't think we ever feel just passionate about one thing. So what comes to mind when you think about like the things that like really light your fire?
I think it probably all comes down to connection. Really, connection with humans, connection with the natural world, and reestablishing the connection to like the old ways of doing things and our ancestors and things. Because if you think about songwriting, as you probably know as well, like for me, it's about the lyrics and about connecting with people through words. And sometimes you're at a gig and you play a song that has literally come straight out of your soul or straight out of somewhere, and there's somebody you've never met before will just come up to you afterwards and maybe be in tears or just be like, wow, that song really touched me. And that is exactly what makes me want to do it more, those moments. I think that's one of the reasons that I write, just to connect with people, because you don't really get that very often anymore. I think we're quite sort of numb to things, aren't we? And especially with a lot of social media stuff, and you do have that disconnection more than ever, even though we should be more connected because we've got all these ways to connect. So I think like with the songwriting, is about connecting to people, and then the woodworking is more about connecting to the natural world, and it kind of works in tandem, because I always call myself like an extroverted introvert because I love people, and I find people so interesting, and I love like chatting away to strangers or friends, whatever. I have so many interesting friends, and I'm really lucky in that way. But I also need alone time. I need time to recuperate myself and my energy, and I need time to like connect back to nature, which is what woodwork gives me, because I can sit in the forest and carve spoons. And so it does actually, I'm only just realizing this now as I say it, but it does work in tandem in that way, feeds my soul in both ways, you know. So
yeah. That's amazing. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we were talking earlier on about Instagram. You love Instagram, and it being like a scrapbook where you can kind of put all of these memories, and I love it for that. And I love social media for all kinds of things. And I'm super into TikTok. I'm far too old for TikTok, but I learn so much on TikTok. But you're right, there is a disconnect. There's a disconnect from stories in a way, though. Isn't it interesting that storytelling has perhaps just moved online to forms like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook? That's kind of where we're telling our stories, but it can also seem quite disconnecting at the same time.
Yeah. Do you ever look at your phone and then you're like scrolling, and you know, with the spoon carving world, there's such a beautiful community on Instagram. I love it. And there's people that I've maybe met once or twice at spoon carving groups or whatever, and then you're suddenly friends, you're following each other, and everyone's so supportive. There's no competitiveness. It's just like, oh, that's really beautiful. And I've messaged people and said like, oh, I'd like to try something like that. Could you tell me how you did it? And there's this beautiful community. But I don't know if you've found yourself, you scroll through your phone and then suddenly I look up and I'm like, whoa, where was I? Like, I was not in this room. Do you know what I mean? And me and my partner, we sort of said, no phones in the bedroom, no phones in the morning. We basically use our phones as like in working hours only. And that's it now. And just because you feel disconnected. I said to him the other day, I was like, I miss you. He was like, what do you mean? I'm right here. I'm like, I miss you. Like, you're like, because he was on his phone, I was on my phone, and it was suddenly like, we're not together. Do you know what I mean? So we made a rule where, you know, phones are just in working hours, because they're a tool for working, you know. So,
yeah, you're absolutely right. Tool for working, and then I guess some form of connection, but there's an acknowledgement of it being a disconnecting connection. It can disconnect you from actual people that are in the same room as you, whilst also connecting you to communities outside. Yeah, that's so interesting. So okay, let's talk about the music. So give me a brief overview of your musical journey. How did you know and get started in music?
Well, it's quite a long story, but I'll try and keep it brief. So basically, my dad, when my parents broke up when I was tiny, my dad bought a canal boat because he couldn't afford to buy a house or anything. He bought a canal boat. He got a loan from the bank, bought a canal boat and paid it off. And we used to go every weekend up to my dad's, and it was gorgeous life. And I remember, like, from the age of sort of maybe 10 onwards, we used to have like these towpath parties where like we'd have a fire on the towpath, like other boaters would come, and there'd be so many people playing instruments. And when I got to about 12 or 13, I thought, I want to join in, but I don't know how, you know. And I always loved like that environment of like jamming with people. So I said to my dad, I want to learn guitar. My dad is a great guitarist, and although he doesn't play as much as he used to, but he's such a good guitarist. And I said, I want to play. And he said, okay. He said, if if you play on my guitar for 6 months, I'll buy you your own guitar, because he obviously wanted to make sure I was invested. So so I played for 6 months on his guitar. He taught me bar chords, because you can basically play anything with bar chords, and also because he wanted to play over the top, like blues. So I would just sit and play 12-bar blues while he soloed over the top for hours, which he said it was like teaching me, but it was quite boring for me playing the same 3 chords over and over again for hours while my dad just soloed over the top. Anyway, after 6 months, we went to the guitar shop in Swindon, and he said, we've never been rich. We've always been sort of living hand to mouth quite a lot of the time as I was growing up. And my mum, we grew up in a council house, and my dad's always worked, but not in sort of high flying jobs, if you know what I mean. So we went to this guitar shop. He said, let's get you an idea of what sort of guitar you want by looking at these guitars in the shop, trying them all out, and then we'll look for one similar secondhand. And I was like, okay. And he took me on the motorbike, on the back of the motorbike. We went to the guitar shop. I looked around, I fell in love with this Crafter guitar. And it was like this beautiful wood on the top, and it was pearl inlay, and it was a little cutaway, and it was electric acoustic. Oh, I was just absolutely in love. And I played it for hours and hours, like in this guitar shop, while my dad was just like pottering around. And then we left the shop, and he said, we've got to come back next week. And I said, why? And he said, I've put a deposit down. So we went back every week for my dad to go and pay a little bit extra off every week. And we'd go on the motorbike, and I'd play my guitar for like you weren't allowed to take it away until you'd paid for it. So I'd play it for a few hours, put it back on the shelf, and then we'd leave again on the motorbike. And one day he said, right, come on, we're going to the guitar shop, get in the van. And I was like, we're going in the van, it means I'm picking up the guitar. And we drove all the way to Swindon and picked the guitar up, and then it just kind of set off this love. And I wrote my first song, I think, about 2 weeks after that, when I was 14, I think, at the time. And I just remember writing 2 songs within about an hour or so, very teenage angsty kind of songs, a bit Nirvana-y. And that just stemmed my love for songwriting. And then I kind of gave up when I got to about 17 or 18. I gave up for a few years, just because like I'd got in with quite a sort of like chavvy crowd, I guess, at school, and it wasn't really the cool thing. So I'd become all like girly, and like, I had like blonde hair, and I used to straighten it all the time. And so I sort of didn't play guitar for ages. And then I picked it up again when I was about 21 or 22. And then songwriting was that's just when I realized I was writing all these songs and not doing anything with them. And then I got dumped by this guy that I was totally in love with. And he dumped me, and I was like, do you know what? Life's too short. That was just like a turnaround moment where I just thought, what am I doing? Just like, these songs need to be heard. Like, I need to get over these nerves and just start playing them. And so I forced myself out to an open mic in Bristol, and I was shaking so much, and I thought I was literally going to throw up on stage. I was so nervous. And then just went from there. And my sister contacted, Kieran, who used to run the LAN from Sheer Music. My sister messaged him and said, you need to hear my sister. And he said, okay. And he recorded a few demos for me, and then he gave me a gig, and then it just stemmed from there. And now, with the band, and it's exciting. I mean, now I just feel like it's just part of me, and performing is kind of a way of just almost like giving, if you know what I mean, because what it's like on stage. You literally bear you're basically naked. You bear everything to people, to these strangers sat in a room. And I think it's kind of just quite addictive.
You bear everything to share these stories in song format for connection. I think there's an addictive part of it that is the moving someone and hearing that feedback of, oh, that really meant something to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Wow, what a story. So, I mean, how annoying is money? Let's talk about money.
I
Because
love money. I love money. Yeah, I mean, it's a very necessary part of life. And I realized, you know, I've worked in so many jobs that I hated, and then did my hobbies on the side. And about a year or so, maybe a bit longer, I just decided I'm not doing that anymore. I refuse to make myself unhappy. I'm going to make my life how I want it. So the way I did that is basically deciding to sacrifice the where I was living. You know, I bought a caravan for 100 quid. It was completely like in pieces. I did it up. It probably cost me another 100 quid to do it up, and I moved into a caravan because paying rent. I was living by myself and paying like £800 a month in rent. I was working a job that I hated, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. So and my caravan's lush. I love it. So yeah, sometimes you got to make those sacrifices. And I've sworn, I've got a bucket list on my wall of all the things I'm going to do. And one of the things on my bucket list is never work in a job that I hate ever again. And that's it.
Amazing. So you've created this lifestyle now whereby you can do the things you love and not have to work in it. I guess you have enough. It's working.
Yeah.
That is working.
It's just working, just about. I mean, I'm never going to be a millionaire because unless, you know, the music thing goes mad or whatever. But I don't mind because I'm so happy and and I feel so myself. I've never felt more myself in my whole entire life than I have in the last couple of years, because I'm doing something that every day I wake up and I think, oh my gosh, this is my job. Like this. And people say to me, a friend said to me the other day, which is I found quite funny, you know, she said it quite off the cuff, but she didn't mean it any malice or anything. But she said, we were talking about something and she said, oh yeah, because then you might have to go and get an actual job. I said, I've got an actual job. I'm self-employed. Like, just because you're self-employed doesn't mean you don't have an actual job. Like, my job is real. I have to do stuff to earn money. You know, I have to gig, which means I have to rehearse for the gig, which means I have to write songs. I have to, you know, I just did this big National Trust woodwork project, and I had deadlines to meet, you know. So basically what I'm saying is, sometimes when you're self-employed, people don't see that as, especially in the arts, like anything in the arts, people often don't see that as a job, you know, and that can be frustrating because, you know, like I'm working right now talking to you, it's part of my job, and you're working right now, and people might not see that as your job, but it is. They just think you're having fun. Yeah, I'm having fun, but it's my job. Like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's the best of both worlds, but it is anti-capitalist, right? It is anti the norm, or the kind of the indoctrinated way of being that we think that we have to get on the hamster wheel of selling our souls for to just survive.
Yeah, and I find that really intriguing to thinking about that subject, because so many people do it, don't they? And I've come to terms with the fact now that I probably will never own a house, and that's fine. Luckily I'm quite nomadic in my ways. I've always wanted to live in vans and boats, and you know, I've never, like, I've got on my bucket list, I want to live in a yurt for like a few years. I want to live on a boat, you know. That's sort of part of who I am. So it's nice to realize that I actually don't want a mortgage and to be tied to that. But there's other people, some people don't have a choice, you know, people with children, they need to have that space and the roof over their head and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's different for everyone, and it's quite
in you know, hearing a different version of success I think is really interesting for people, because I was talking to a music producer, music manager, artist manager, Loretta Andrews, the other day for a podcast episode, and she was talking about artists who kind of go, yeah, I want the record deal, I want the massive tours, I want this, but she was like, but you sacrifice your soul to get that with these. So maybe there's is your desire to share stories, make art, make songs, make music, or and you can find some kind of success like that, or do you want the big tour and the record deal and that kind of thing? So I'm loving these stories of alternatives.
Yeah, and I think that's really nice to talk to somebody that, you know, that sort of finds that interesting, because I've gone through those periods in my life where I've been like, oh my gosh, like I'm 34 now and I'm not married, I don't have children, I don't own a house. I'm like, I've had moments where I've been like, oh my gosh, am I being left behind? Or like, but I don't feel that anymore. Like the last couple of years, I've just felt you have to become comfortable with being yourself, haven't you? And you have to become comfortable with your own version of success, like you said, and what that means to you. And for me, it's living a slow life where I get to grow vegetables, go do a lot of traveling, have a lot of lovely friends to share food and drink with, share music with people, have the best dog in the world. That's success, and I'm pretty much there, and feel so grateful for everything that has been, you know, put my way, because all the bad stuff is also part of that, you know, and builds you up. And you think, sometimes you look back and you go, oh yeah, that's the reason that I had to go through that to get to this place.
Yeah, and I can't help but picture that 17-year-old Tamsin with the blonde straightened hair, you know, trying to fit in and eventually, you know, metamorphosizing, is that a word, into today's Tamsin, who's just being authentically herself.
Yeah, that's it. And I feel so comfortable in myself now. And you know, that I think that's taken so many years. It's exciting getting old, isn't it?
I think so. Like I'm 43 now and I just dyed my hair blue, and I feel like that's given me a whole new, and I love my grey hair, but now I'm like, now it's blue, and that's opened up a whole new world of way of thinking. It's weird. So with the music, so what take a breath, Amy. With the music, how much is kind of Tamsin stuff and how much is Lost Trade stuff? What sort of, where are you at with the percentage of stuff, I suppose?
I'm not doing very much solo stuff at the moment. I would like to do another solo album. It's kind of, I don't really know how to describe it. I think the woodwork stuff has taken on for me such a big role, especially with bringing the income and stuff like that. I love playing with the band because it's just so nice to play with other people on stage. But I do miss my solo shows. I miss connecting one-to-one. When you're with the band, that chatter in between songs is shared, you know, between the three of you. And there's something lovely about that too. But there's also something lovely about sitting in a room and just having a journey or a conversation with a crowd, just yourself, you know. And but I think at the moment it's juggling things, isn't it? Because I'm busy all the time. There's never any time that I'm like, my day off is like carving spoons because I love it.
Right.
So, or writing songs, you know. So even if I have a day off, it's like a day. It's a day off to me is not putting any pressure on myself to get something done. But it still involves doing things that I love. But yeah, so I think at the moment focusing on the band because I don't really have the time to put in, or rather I'm choosing to put my time into the woodwork rather than solos. And I think I want to do another album solo, but I think I'm writing a concept album called Trees I've Met, which is basically just loads of songs about trees that I love, but like kind of thoughtful, and like some of them are love songs, and they're not all like focused on like, you know, they've got stories behind them. But so I'm working on that solo. But I think with the band stuff, it has been a learning curve, letting go of your songs and putting your trust in, you know, two other people to add their things to it. And so therefore I sort of end up keeping some of my songs because they're so personal and so private, and I find it hard to let go and give that control to other people. And sometimes I write songs where I think this one's going to be for the band, you know, so it's kind of a mix. I'm still writing a lot, but just not doing so many solo things, and a lot of the songs go to the band. So,
yeah. I in your introduction I kind of mentioned some of your I don't know whether it's influences / been compared to, but who are your kind of biggest inspirations, whether that's creatively, musically, songwriting, who you love, who's been important in your kind of finding your voice, I suppose?
Well, I think most recently, Joni Mitchell. I never gave her much of a chance when I was younger, and about 3 years ago somebody lent me an album. I think it's The Hissing of Summer Lawns, and I put it on in the van, and I was like, my gosh, why have I never listened to Joni Mitchell before? And what I love about Joni is she gets the balance of sorrow and heartbreak and loneliness. She gets that with a little bit of sarcasm and a little bit of wit, but with this lightheartedness, and that's really inspired me to be a bit more thoughtful about my lyrics, and just like tell the story, because she's such a storyteller. So she's been like lately something, I mean, I just listen to her all the time. I just bought a Song to a Seagull, and I've got that in the car all the time, and I'm going through like the high street in town, and I'm like playing Joni Mitchell, and I'm thinking, God, I must look like it sounds like Song to a Seagull, the first album, is like really, really what's the word, kind of floaty, and it's all like or like really high floating long notes, and so sometimes I think maybe I should turn it down while I drive through the middle of town. So I think that's really been a huge influence. But I mean, I listen to so much different stuff. Like my partner's really into reggae, so we listen to a lot of reggae and blues and stuff, and but for me, it's all about the lyrics, and I love just sad, depressing music. I don't know why. Because it makes you feel something, doesn't it? If anything makes you feel something inside, like whether that's joy or sadness or something that moves you, then I think that's. But then I also listen to, like, have you heard Tankers and Henge?
Yeah, I love Tankers and Henge.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love them. And so like sometimes when I want to dance, I just like turn that up. And sometimes I put on like Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill, and I just sing at the top of my lungs, like in the kitchen while I'm cooking breakfast, or Aerosmith or something like that. And you just like blast it out and just dance around the kitchen and sing. So yeah, lots of different things really.
Amazing. Tankers, is it Tankers and the Henge or Tankers and Henge?
I think it's Tankers the Henge.
Tankers the Henge. That's Jazz DeLorean.
Yeah.
I happened to see him play it somewhere in Devizes in a tiny little room, and just was absolutely blown away by his piano playing and his story. Again, another fantastic storyteller. Yeah,
so poetic with his lyrics as well, which is a really nice contrast, but especially with the band, because he's got like the real sort of almost what's the word? Not dubby, but almost kind of like there's just a real like classic sound. Like there's a lot of sort of Sinatra and jazz, but there's also like this like big brass section and there's great bass lines, and it just makes you want to dance, doesn't it? It's so good.
Amazing. So if we were, so we've talked a little bit about passion. Do you feel like purpose is different to passion? Do you feel like, actually, I feel quite confident that this is my purpose? Or again, we can have many or none purposes. But what do you kind of feel or think about when you think of the word purpose?
I always think that purpose, we all kind of share like a similar purpose, which I think is serving other people and making other people happy, and sharing compassion and sharing love, and all those hippy dippy things. But I do think that's what our purpose is. I think that's what humans are for, is to And so I you know, I have like a daily practice where I do my yoga and meditation and give my thanks for everything that I've got. And then I try and like purposely spread that around. So it's like a case of just being patient with people, and just, you know, sometimes I find myself like sat in traffic and you're having a go at, you know, the people in front of you or whatever. And I feel like you can just get quite, it's quite easy to get yourself, like, allow yourself to get angry about that. But I think like, well, what if that's my grandma in front, you know, or something like that. You know, it's just, I think purpose is, yeah, I do think it's different to passion. I think purpose is how you're serving other people. And I think passion is perhaps how you're serving yourself, maybe.
Oh, I like that. That's so interesting. It's so philosophical, these questions, and I love them, which is why I'm indulging them in a podcast.
Yeah, I love it.
So do you think passion is more what you do and purpose is who you are?
Yes, I like that. Yeah, I think so. I mean, sometimes people don't like the word passion, do they? Like, what are you passionate about, you know? But I think people go, oh, that's my passion. But it's what sets your soul on fire. That's how I say it. Like, if it sets your soul on fire, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
They said, like, there's that old thing of like, you should have three things. You should have a hobby that can make you money, a hobby that can keep you fit and healthy, and a hobby that, can't remember the third one. I think it's a hobby that makes you happy. One that makes you really happy, one that makes you the money, and one that keeps you happy. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know. Like for me, like wood carving is quite an active hobby. Music makes me really happy. Which one makes me money? Well, they sort of together pay the bills.
Yeah. And I think you know, I suppose I'm regularly sort of challenged by you know, the people that I want to be around, and the people that, again, I've kind of I've gathered to this podcast are the people that kind of think similarly, in that it's not about what we can keep for ourselves, it's about what we can share and pass on, and whether that's through song or wisdom or stories or, you know, anything. And it's in stark contrast to quite a lot of the world that sort of says, no, mine, this is mine, I need this, I want this, keeping this to myself. These systems of power that we're in that sort of perpetuate this idea of I need to keep more to myself. How do you think about that much, or how do you kind of stand up under that kind of system, those systems?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to sound too like conspiracy theorist or anything, because I'm not like I don't think about it too much, but I have obviously had some thought about it. And I think I do think that we are trained or forced into this whole environment of working a job you hate to pay for a house that is like gazillion that you'll never pay off probably, you know. And I think that we are sort of forced into that so that well, I don't know, I don't like sounding conspiracyist, but I mean, so that the government can kind of like we're too busy to stand up for anything else, basically.
We're busy, we're compliant.
They make us so busy that we can't
we're tired.
That's it. We're too tired to go out and protest against anything, or tell them off for putting additives in our food, or for spilling oil in our sea. We're like, oh, I'm too tired to go to a protest, you know, because you're so busy working. Most people work 2 jobs to keep a roof over their head, you know. It's insane. So I do think that's something that I feel so lucky that I've been able to take myself out of that system and been able to follow. But again, I do think everyone has a choice. I just, you know, my dad has always said to me, like, because, you know, with the narrowboat thing, growing up on the narrowboat, my dad has always said, I'm so glad I got to show you that there is another way of living. And so I've spent many years living in vans, and, you know, I hope to get my own boat. But yeah, I think it's really important to almost like take the blinkers off every now and again.
Yeah. And I really hope episodes like this can do that. You know, I don't know who's going to find this podcast, and whether it will be people that think similarly anyway, or whether it will be sort of people that are, well, I mean, I guess I'm interested in how people find their passion and purpose. And I suppose what you've sort of described is the community of the narrowboat life and boating life gave you a glimpse of something that you wanted, and that sort of birthed the music part. And I think
sorry, that word community, like that for me is the meaning of life, like community. So like you said, the narrowboat community, and then building that music sort of life out of that, the spoon carving community. I think there's so much room for everyone. People think like, oh, if somebody else is spoon carving, then it means that we've got competition or something. Like, no, that's what I love about the spoon carving community. It's so supportive. And you know, I love doing the workshops because I love passing on the knowledge so that other people can have that joy of sitting in the woods and doing something with their hands and feeling they've achieved something, you know. So I think like and in the music side of things, it's quite easy to think that you're in competition with other people. But you have, you know, you probably experienced it too, being like a female musician, a female songwriter, any other female songwriters. Sometimes you go, oh, I'm not as good as them, or oh, they're better at me than at this, or they're prettier than me, or, you know, and you get into this competitive mindset where you think like that you're not good enough, or there's not enough space for all of you. But then you realize, hang on, we're so different. Like everyone has their own little niche. Like with the spoons, everyone has their own style of spoon carving. There's room for all of us, and we can just be supporting each other and going, wow, you've done such a great job. I wonder how I can do that, or I wonder if I could do something similar, you know. And I think that is part of community. And I think that the life that the government presents to us as being the right life puts a stop to community. And so I think that it's so important to support, like go to a gig or go to your local market and support independent people. Go and like have a chat with some random strangers down the pub, you know, say hello to people in the street. I'm always just I chat to anyone. I'm like, hiya all the time. People probably think I'm mad, but I'm like, I don't care. I'm just going to talk. If I think someone looks interesting, I'll be like, oh, I like your hat, or I love your hair, or, you know, and like if you're in the ladies' loo and someone comes out, oh, I love your dress. You know, it's just spreading those little bits of community and love. And I think it's just a really important way of giving and serving. And when you give it's quite selfish, really, because when you give to other people, it makes you feel good. So it's actually a selfish act.
There's definitely light and shadow to all of these things. It's never just one thing. They're multifaceted. And I think that, well, let me ask you this, because you might have an amazing answer. If someone doesn't feel like they have a purpose or passion yet, or they don't know what that is or what that means for them, how would you suggest someone goes about figuring out what they're passionate about or what their purpose is?
I do think that's really hard, because I have a lot of people that say to me like, oh, I wish I could do that, I wish I was that talented, or, you know, I think people see the creative side as being like something that they wish they could do. I mean, a lot of the time they just don't realize it because they haven't tried it, you know. So a lot of the time it's just the fact they're almost holding themselves back. And I don't know whether that's fear. I mean, my sister, for example, has amazing rhythm, and she took up drums for a very short time when we were younger, and she was so good at it. And I've always wanted to like, and our voices together, when she gets drunk and she sings with me, our voices sound great, but she'll never perform in front of people because she's so nervous, and she doesn't think that she's good enough. And maybe that could be her purpose or passion, you know, but she hasn't allowed herself. And I think fear is like the biggest thing that holds people back, because you could say to people, people say like, oh, I can't carve a spoon. I'm like, I'll show you. Here's a knife. Let's do it. And some people are like, oh, no, I don't think it'll be for me. Like, how do you know it's not for you if you don't try things? Yeah, I think people are just maybe get comfortable, don't they? And then they don't try things. It's really important to just try things and put yourself out your comfort zone. And like when I was younger, I got really into crochet for quite a long time. I used to make dream catchers and all this stuff. And then I found woodworking and I was like, this is my thing. Like, and maybe this is a case of working. It doesn't have to be a creative thing. Maybe your thing is working on spreadsheets. Maybe you love numbers, you know? So I think, it's just a case of trying things, isn't it?
I think it's so interesting because I we've been talking about this kind of enforced slavery is too a stronger word, but an enforced
lifestyle.
Buying into this idea that really does restrict our opportunity to figure out what we're passionate about, because we don't get to try things because we're brought up in this competitive system. We compete from the minute we get into school, when we get the little stickers on the reward charts, and you're already kind of looking at everyone going, oh, they're better than me at that, but I might be better than them. So you're figuring out where you fit into the lineup of talent. But there's no room for just what about the little kids that just want to hug the trees, or you know, want to roll around in the grass barefoot.
Exactly. I mean, I left school when I was 14 and I've got no GCSEs, I've got no qualifications, because I just can't learn sitting in a classroom, and I can't learn things if I'm not interested, or if they're not interesting to me. So, but I would never call myself undereducated, you know, because I've always learned. I love learning about things that I'm passionate about, and the way I learn is by doing. And there's so many kids that are trapped in schools and they're labeled like ADHD or problem child or whatever because they don't learn in that way. And it's like that old saying, like was it Albert Einstein or someone? He said, if you judge, everyone is born clever, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will always live its life thinking it's stupid. And it is so true.
And we can have a world and a society full of creative thinkers, and you know, really finding creative solutions to the world's problems, if we just had the freedom and the capacity to, like, I'll probably edit this bit out, but the rules/law has changed on leaving education. And so, you know, my son has never been academic, intelligent, but not academic, and he is being forced to take his maths and English GCSE over and over and over until he gets a level 4. Otherwise he literally cannot go on and do anything else.
That's so awful. And the thing is, he's probably really good at something else.
Oh, he loves sports, he loves music, but no, he's got to keep slogging away to pass a 2-hour exam.
It just blows my mind. I don't know how they get away with doing that, because it's just so cruel. And imagine what that's doing to his self-esteem, or to his to his self-worth, where he's probably thinking, I'm stupid because I can't do it. And and I bet he's not. I bet he's really good at everything else. But and it's like, it's the cruelest system ever to be put into that.
And actually, I think he would love to carve a spoon.
Yes.
I think that's what he would. He's constantly saying,
anytime.
Can I have a pocket knife? I just want to go and whittle something. So I'll send him over to you one day.
I'd love that.
Power. What we have actually talked a lot about power in lots of different ways in this conversation, but and you may have already answered this earlier on, but when do you feel at your most powerful? What does that mean for you?
I feel the most powerful when I am feeling that I'm doing my passion, that I'm being myself and accepting of myself. I think, like, when you finally realize you're stuck with yourself for the rest of your life, however long that may be, and you go, okay, I'm gonna like myself, and I'm going to tell myself that I deserve these good things, and I'm going to allow myself to be who I am. That's when you're powerful. So I feel my most powerful when I'm singing about something that maybe really hurt me in the past, and I'm singing about it, and I feel that there's that emotional attachment is not there anymore to that negative thought, or I feel really powerful when I'm like sharing stories about spoons or sharing skills with somebody, and just being yourself. I think that's just when you finally are at peace with yourself, I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. I think that's a really good note to end it on. I think that, you're most, when everything's aligned, I suppose, your values, your joy, your passion, your purpose, all of that combines to really be living in your power. And I think I was thinking about, your sister came to mind then, and I was just thinking about the fear of what other people think holding her back. And if there's one thing that I wish I could change, it would be just everybody could, if no maybe this wouldn't work, but if no one cared about what people thought, I wonder what the world would be like. Maybe that would be terrible.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an element of it that has to sort of be there, but it would be so freeing, I think.
Yeah, I think I mean, I spent years and years in fear of playing songs in my bedroom and not playing and not going out on stage. And I think, God, because I came to it so late in life, like started gigging at like 21, and I think like I should have been gigging way before this. And I think that would be so nice if people could forget that. But I think the society at the moment, the only way we're going to change that is by uplifting people ourselves. And I always think of it as like, because we've had this discussion with my partner about watching the news and stuff like that. Like I don't watch the news, I don't listen to any news, I don't read a newspaper, because it just makes me depressed. And they're just telling you the things they want you to know. They're not telling you the good stories. They're not telling you of this story I saw on Facebook where that was saying thank you to all the people that had picked up this old man who'd fallen over. That's not in the news.
Yeah,
they'll tell you about the people that robbed the old man, or they don't tell you about the people that stop and help. And so I think like it's really important to what I always think of is creating your bubble. And if your bubble is nice, like, and positive and full of the people you love and full of the things you love, then that bubble will start encompassing someone else's bubble. And then it will just pass around, and then all these bubbles will grow into like the world eventually, So I think it's really just about making your bubble really nice, and then that will affect the way that other people see their bubbles and how they treat their bubble and tend to it. And that makes sense.
Lovely way of thinking about it. And thank you for sharing the story of kind of how you found your voice. That's kind of how I feel the what we've talked about today is how Tamsin found her voice and her power. And I think the more people can do that, especially women, the more inspiring that is for other people to be able to think, maybe I have a voice that can say that has something important to share.
Definitely.
And I no pressure, but I can't wait for the album with the tree, the story, the love songs. I'm already sort of thinking of you as like this Lorax character who speaks on behalf of the trees and makes wood into amazing art. And so it makes so much sense that there's this album being thought about in there somewhere.
I'm so excited.
Tamsin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story. And I will, like I said, put all of your social media links out there so people can follow your journey and buy your albums and buy some amazing wood gifts, because they are delightful. So I'll share all of that. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for doing what you're doing, because you're another example of you're creating your own bubble of your reality. You're making what you want to do into a reality, and that's going to inspire other people, make them, that's going to spread. You're part of the good spreading, if you know what I mean. Does that sound bad? Sounds like an STI or something. Good spreading.
No, I love that. I love that. It's messy and brilliant. Yeah, I think you're right. Just, you know, getting to a point in life where I've gone, do you know what? I just want to do this thing that I find really fun, which is talking to people, talking to interesting people, and I'm going to stick it out there and you know, not really worry too much about what happens after that. But I'm enjoying this bit, and that makes me very
Somebody
happy.
said to me once, it was a tarot card reader. She said to me, as long as you do what you enjoy, you will be successful.
Yeah.
And I think it's true, because if you put all your energy into the things you love, then it can only turn out good.
Yeah. Lovely. Perfect. Okay, thank you so much, and good luck with all of your amazing creations and art.
Thank you. Thanks, Ames.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and if you really want to help me out, I would love it if you could leave me a review and share my podcast with friends who you think would also enjoy it. This podcast was produced by Lexi at Digital Hero, and the music was created by Charlie at Walters Music Productions.